We're just 1 minute past 3 o'clock, so it's time to get to business. We're going to go ahead and call ourselves to order. Appreciate everyone for attending our business meeting here today. Today we have our invocation by our city manager, Grayson Path. If you guys would rise and stay standing for the pledges.
Let's pray. Our Father God in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Our Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful day you've given us. We thank you for the rain we've had. We thank you for how it nourishes our ground so our agriculture and our community can thrive. Our Father, we thank you for bringing us to this time now in which we can, as public servants, serve our community. We ask you please bless this meeting. We ask you please bless the City Council as they deliberate and discuss the important matters that our community has in front of it. We ask you please grant them wisdom and discernment as they try to make the right decisions. We thank you so much for their service. We thank you so much for the service of so many for our community, both as council and staff, and so many in our community who work behind the scenes to make our community great. We ask you please bless us and help our community to grow and to prosper. We ask your will be done with all of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. If you guys would join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, guys. Please be seated. But don't sit down for very long. So we do have a proclamation here today. We're going to go downstairs. Gentlemen, if y'all meet me down there. Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and we do have Miss Marcy Leffler here and anybody else that's with her.
Whereas abuse of older adults and persons with disabilities is a tragedy inflicted on a vulnerable segment of the population that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries, and whereas our population lives longer, we are presented with an opportunity to think about our collective needs and future as a nation, and whereas combating abuse of older adults and persons with disabilities helps improve the quality of life for seniors and allows them to continue to live as independently and as vibrantly as possible. And whereas ageism and social isolation are major causes of elder abuse in the United States, and whereas Amarillo seniors should be treated with respect and dignity as they continue to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and are important and active members of our community. Now, therefore, we, Mayor and City Council members of the City of Amarillo, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2025 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Amarillo, and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce abuse and neglect of people who are elderly or have disabilities. Thank you. Would you like to say anything?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I like this new building. It's great. So my name is April Hernandez. I'm the supervisor for Adult Protective Services here in Potter Randall County. I want to introduce a few of our workers. So starting over here, we've got Laura Ryer. She's on our Texas Star Silver Board. And Tisha Pride, she's one of our investigators. Cheyenne Naveen, investigator. Brandy Krantz, investigator. And then Marcy Leffler, she's our community engagement specialist for 101 counties. So she's all over the place. So we appreciate y'all for recognizing Elder Abuse Month. It's definitely something I'm passionate about. If you see something, say something, please give us a call. We'll definitely go out, assess the situation, see what we can do to help them out. And our hotline number is 1-800-252-5400. So if y'all have any questions, y'all can let us know. But once again, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys for letting us do that. We will jump right into our meeting. Do I have any announcements, Mr. City Manager?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll go into public comment. Ms. City Secretary, if you don't mind reading us into that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for participating in today's City Council meeting. Your input and your opinions are important to us, and we're glad that you're here to share them. At each posted meeting, we invite our fellow community members to address City Council regarding posted agenda items or topics related to city policy. Every speaker today will have 3 minutes to address the council. We ask that you stay within your 3 minutes allotted. If you are here to speak on an item with a public hearing today, we request that you make your comment during either public comment or the public hearing, but not both, in order to help us keep accurate records. It's your decision at which point in time you'd like to speak. When you come to the microphone today, please state your name and whether or not you live within the Amarillo city limits. If you're addressing council on an item that is not on the agenda, please remember they are limited in how they can interact with you on that. They may refer you to staff, or they may ask that your item be placed on a future agenda. Again, thank you for being here today. First up is Nathan Smith, and after Nathan will be Leif Curtis.
Good afternoon, Council. Congratulations on your re-elections. Sorry, Mr. Tom. Today I'm going to do a public service announcement and cover a piece of research done back in the 1960s. Now I'm going to ask everyone to imagine yourself as a youth in a college in 1961. You see a flyer. It says, Professor Ash. He's running an experiment. You don't really understand it. You look it over. There was a professor who said you can get extra credit for doing other experiments. So you go in, and it's about eyesight or perception or something. You don't really care. You need the extra credit or want it, whatever. So they explain it to you. It's very simple. There's 1 line on the left, 3 lines on the right. There are 7 people in the experiment. All you got to do is say which one on the right matches the line on the left. So it sounds easy enough. First round goes, you're towards the end. The first line matches with B. You know it matches with B. It goes on the line. Everybody up to you. They say it matches with B. Last guy goes, he says it's B. So the line is B. Round 1 complete. Only like 12 more to go. Fantastic. Second round, same thing. It's line A. So you go down. Everybody, line A, line A, line A. Gets to you. Line A. Last person, line A. Fantastic. Third round, it's the same. You're all in unison. The group is together. Fantastic. Fourth round, it's line C. First person goes, it's line A. Second, line A. Third, line A. But you're like, it's line C. In your head, you might be screaming, and it gets to you. It's your turn. How do you respond? I don't know. Last guy confirms what the rest of the group was saying, and now you're thrown off, because the same thing happens on the 5th, and the 6th, and the 7th. You know the line is B when it's B, but they're all saying C for some reason. You don't understand it. A little bit of panic might arise. It doesn't really matter. You just want some extra credit. What's going on, man? And then it gets to a control round, and everyone's once again in unison. It's like round 13 or something. You're line A. They're finally line A. Oh, thank God. Everyone's in conform. And then it goes back to it's line B, but they're saying it's line A again. Oh, God, what's going on? So the experiment ends. Fantastic. Then it's revealed there was a bit of a ruse. This was an experiment on group conformity to see how people would react if there are cognitive distortions in their information. Now, I bring this up because 75% of the participants conformed at least once. 25% never conformed. That's fantastic. They stuck with reality. 5% of those tested conformed every single time. Wonderful stuff. Ugh. Anyway, back that up to the macro level, and this is where I extrapolate and make stuff up a little bit. Only 16 seconds left. The research is Solomon Asch group conformity. I would recommend looking it up, and I say this and bring this to everyone's attention because we all have a single reality that's objective. We have reality filtered to us from whatever news we watch, and the people...
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you speaking, Nathan.
I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Okay. Man, I appreciate everyone who offers public comment. We definitely want to continue with the decorum. We appreciate the decorum here today from Mr. Smith in the appropriate delivery, but we would ask that we speak to city business. And so if it relates directly to city business, definitely productive for this setting. So, Ms. City Secretary, over to you.
Okay, Leif Curtis. And council, as Leif walks up, behind his comment form is a couple of documents that he provided in advance. So those are in your folders behind his sign-up form.
Good afternoon, Mayor Stanley and council members. Just for legal purposes, I will say I'm a resident of the city of Amarillo. I'm standing in front of you today representing Failsafe Communications Incorporated. Again, for transparency purposes, I do have to let you all know that Failsafe Communications has a registered ex parte with the FCC. So in considerations for this request, I am considered a lobbyist. You all should have my request, like Stephanie said, for consideration of an agenda slot for Failsafe Communications in future meetings. This is to garner a non-binding resolution from the city of Amarillo in support of our technology. I'm here today to ask you two important questions about public safety. If someone dials 911 and does not get through, does that matter? My hope is that you'd say yes. I see some of y'all shaking your heads, that's yes. When that happens, is it important to you all as council members that you all know that that's happened before the local news does? I'd probably say yes, right? Gentlemen, lives matter, and it is possible for 911 systems to go down due to call volume in addition to a myriad of other elements. As an elected official, you all are usually the last ones to find out about it. Our technology is available nationwide. It uses special signaling messages that accompany every phone call in North America to know about 911 callers who cannot get through. If I could, I'd like to show you the system. If anybody would be willing to volunteer, I just need you to take out your cell phone and call this number.
I'm on it, Leif.
Thank you. The number is 210-940-9411. So what this is going to do is going to simulate a 911 call center. You're going to get a busy signal, and here in just a second when that happens, you'll get a text message stating a message. If you could, please read that message whenever you get it, Mr. Stanley.
Text message reads, your call has triggered a 911 alert and was logged on a summary report. This is only a test. 911 has not been alerted.
Thank you, sir. At that same time, I received, as the 911 call center, I received a text message and an email alert saying that this number, I won't say it just for purposes, but the number that you called from, Mayor Stanley, has been an impacted number. This goes on a summary report, and it goes to the 911 call center saying, hey, your system is down. You all and whomever else you choose can have that summary report. Most importantly, your 911 center is receiving those reports as well. They might not know that the system is down. And then, also importantly, your citizens know that that call has been logged and it's been seen versus receiving a busy signal and then going, what do I do now? Right? Most 911 centers are next-gen 911 centers, though. Their call will not be seen, will not be heard through a next-gen 911 center. They do not have this technology. This technology is patented and is the only in the entire nation, really in the entire world. Most recently, a large carrier was hit with a $15 million fine handed down by the FCC. The FCC is enforcing these, and if you are not in compliance with FCC 2288, they are coming after you now. I'm requesting that the fail-safe team come to a future city council meeting, do a proper presentation to show you what this looks like, and to receive a non-binding resolution.
Okay, Mr. Curtis, we're going to connect you with Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Is that how you want to do
Yes. I'd like to recommend that if you could get with Mr. Freeman and his team, and we'd be happy to look this over for the council if you like.
that? Yep, thank you.
Perfect.
Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
presentation,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Ms. City Secretary, you have anyone else signed up?
That concludes everyone that signed up
Okay.
today.
Don't have anyone else here today that would like to offer public comment. Mr. Fisher, I see your hand if you come forward.
My name is Mike Fisher. I live in the city limits of Amarillo. I'm here today because I made what I thought was a simple, reasonable request that the city of Amarillo publish its check register online. A basic transparency measure, one that cities all across Texas already do. I thought asking to see where our tax dollars go would be easy, you know, like ordering a pizza. But I didn't read the fine print. Turns out I must have picked the one topping they won't deliver, transparency. The other thing in the fine print is it said they refused to serve transparency, and accountability isn't on the city's delivery routes. It's a three-part joke there. Did you get that? I figured you did. Jokes aside, what concerns me more is what happened after my request. This item was placed on the agenda. During that meeting, we were told it would continue to be discussed until resolved. So in other words, it'd be on future agendas. And now it's not on the agenda. When I asked why, I was surprised that the city manager, that's you over here, look at me when I'm talking to you. They feel like the fat guy walking down the aisle on an airplane when nobody wants to get eye contact. It seems like that a lot. And the city manager appears to have removed the item without discussion. That raises a serious issue because in Section 22 of the Amarillo City Charter, the agenda is to be determined by the mayor in cooperation with the city manager, not the city manager acting alone. At the end of this, I'd like the city manager to ask him a statement of fact. What authority do you have to remove an agenda item from the agenda without consultation with the mayor? A minute. We've also heard excuses like the person in charge isn't ready. But why is readiness an issue for a transparency request? We're now asking for new infrastructure. We're asking to see records that already exist. At the same time, questions are growing louder about what's really going on with the city's finances. I've been told by people who know city operations well, there are concerns about missing money in the 9-figure range. And there's serious confusion about where things stand. If Amarillo has hundreds of millions in reserves, why are we being told we can't spend a few $1 million to fix roads? This isn't about politics, it's about trust. If we can't get straight answers on something as simple as a check register, how are we supposed to believe anything else? Restore this item to the agenda and ensure the city manager is complying with the charter and show the people in Amarillo that this city is run with transparency.
Mr. Fisher, thank you. As a statement of fact, we'll get that on our next agenda. I know that city manager and I had discussed it, and he's given me a commitment. He'll have it ready on the next meeting.
And can he answer the question if he has the authority to remove an agenda item as a statement of fact?
So, Mr. City Manager, after public comment is over, if you'd like to address Mr. Fisher, feel free. We won't take this time up with
Thank
that,
you.
though. Thank you. Appreciate you. Anyone else here that would like to offer public comment? Yes, sir. Mr. Skank.
James Skank, City Limits. I just have a question here, and I wish we could get some explanation on it. Last meeting, we ran into the fact that we only had one bid on these parking lots. And that seems to be a real problem because I thought it was city policy to get several bids and don't stop until you get several bids. But this source well, excuse me, this source well seems to be, well, Tri-State is their favorite pick. And we gave them over $3 million in a contract to build the parking lots last meeting. And this meeting, we're giving them almost $2 million for buildings, redoing some restrooms and, what was that other one? The Civic Center restrooms, and then the other one here was 73,000. So I'm just curious, are we just going to use Sourcewell exclusively and we're going to take what they have? Is there some explanation as to why other contractors are not in that Sourcewell? And if they are they not making proposals? Or, that's just curious to me, because it seemed like they would want, but we give Tri-State about $5 million in the last 2 meetings to do the work. That seems a little biased for some reason. They're probably a good company. I don't know. Got a lot of things they do, but spread the wealth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here would like to offer public comment today? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment. We'll move forward to our consent agenda, Section 8. Council, do I have any questions on any item that is listed on the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull off in and talk about it.
Item 8N is in Nancy?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, council? Would ask for a motion removing item 8N.
I move to accept the consent agenda as presented, less item N.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 8N. Mr. Path, can you direct that item for us, sir?
Yes, is Mitch with us today, or?
Yes, he's back there.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, go right ahead, Councilman.
For starters, did we get more than one bid?
Yes,
And what were the other bids?
we got 33
Okay.
vendors.
Secondly, do you think if we took that $750,000 per year and put it into wages, would we need a temporary company?
Well, the 750,000 is a contingency buffer. It's not necessarily just for staffing shortages like recruitment issues. Sometimes there are special projects or one-time grant monies that may be awarded. Rather than onboard employees for a temporary basis directly, we can exercise our temporary contract to bring them on for those special projects.
How often do we do that?
It depends. Most recently, the past couple years, there's been a high utilization, but within this current calendar year, there was a drastic reduction due to funding ended for certain grant programs. So I can't say consistently.
Okay. How much did we spend last year?
So from December of 23, I have it broken into periods. It's not an exact year.
That'll be fine.
But from December of 23 through August of 24, oh, I'm sorry, that's 23. I apologize. I'm sorry, 24 spend was 613, approximately 613,000.
613 was
Yes, sir.
the maximum 750 last year as well.
Actually, the renewal terms were for 400,000, so we actually expended our renewal terms prematurely due to the increased utilization. So we initially had 400,000 per year for 3 renewal terms, but we exercised those renewals early. That's why we had to go back out for bid.
Okay. So we had been doing it 400,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
And now we're going to 750,000 a year.
Again, that's just a contingency. That's not the anticipated spend, but in order to account for any utilization that we can't necessarily account for, again, like the one-time grant dollars or temporary staffing for emergency projects, that's why we bid for a higher annual limit, but that's just up to $750. That's not necessarily committing to $750 annually.
Okay. What would be the difference if we approve the 400 like we've done in the past, and if you reach that limit, coming back to council and asking for more money?
I would have to consult with purchasing on how to exercise that. I assume we'd have to go through another bid process because the terms of what was marketed is different, but I'd have to just consult with them on how to navigate that.
From what I'm looking at here, that's a substantial increase from 400 to 750, 350,000, 40% thereabouts increase for this year over last year. That just seems like a lot of money to me.
And again, these are contingencies in that, I mean, the funding is actually in our salary lines. And so if we, I mean, whenever we have a vacancy, that's a full-time position that's not being paid. So that's funding that can go towards paying for these temporary positions here. So the funding is in the budget. And it's when we have vacancies, we can utilize that to help pay for this. Am I speaking right, Laura?
Yes, and as Mitch mentioned, sometimes we do get like short-term contracts or grant funding, and as he mentioned, instead of bringing people on for a short period of time and then essentially having to lay them off, we utilize some of these temporary services just for that period of time. And those honestly just vary from time to time. Sometimes, you know, there might be a season that's coming up where they know that we're going to have a lot more work, but it's just a short-term thing. Instead of maybe hiring seasonal employees, they might bring on some temporary staff, and then as soon as they're done, let those go. But again, this money, I think the reason that they brought the dollar amount up this time is so we wouldn't have to go through a contract too fast and have to go right back out to bid again, because they expended the last contract faster than anticipated. And again, if we don't spend the $750, it goes away. It remains in the budget as is.
Has the council received a copy of this contract?
We typically don't put the contracts in the agenda packet.
Well,
no.
I have a problem with that, and I'll explain why. You're expecting us to make a commitment of $3,750,000 over the total period of this contract, but yet you're wanting us to make that kind of commitment, but we don't see a contract. Now, how does that, you're wanting me to give y'all money, but yet you don't want me to see what I'm giving it for. Is that right?
That's not right, no.
What's wrong with that?
We can certainly add agreements going forward. It's never been requested by the council since I've been here. So if the council would like for us to include contracts, we can certainly do that going forward.
I would think anytime we're doing a contract, whether it's $1 million or $5 million, I think these gentlemen should have the right to see that contract. What bothered me last meeting was Mr. Danforth said, you can't see the contract until you vote for it. I don't believe in that. That's not right, that's not transparent, and that's not what the citizens of Amarillo want. They want to know what they're spending their money for. Now, if they don't want to read the contract, that's up to us. But I think we should have the availability to see each and every contract. Just my thought.
Mr. Path, the contract is available. What I would attempt to do here would be to provide that from Councilman Sherlin to read. We could move forward with discussion items and then hopefully put this back up to vote on. If the contract is the issue, so if you don't have a problem with the item per se, now if you don't necessarily want to read the contract before voting on it here because you have a predetermined vote, then like we wouldn't go through that exercise. However, if we could provide you with the contract so you could read it, contract is available, Mr. Path?
Is it ready to go?
Yes. Yep. Why don't we do this? Why don't we allow for that to be given to Councilmember Sherlin? If you could email it to him, he could read it on his tablet. We could move forward into our discussion item, and I'll take this item up individually after discussion on a non-consent.
Okay. Yes, let me give it staff and see who's got that, and we'll get it over to you.
Does that work for you, Councilman? Okay, thank you. So we'll hold off on item 8N until after review of the contract, and I will move us forward into our discussion. Thank you, Mr. Norman. Appreciate you coming up. I'll move us forward into our discussion items. Item 9A, review agenda items for regular meetings and attachments. Council, do you have anything that you need review before we move into item 9B? No. Okay. Item 9B, police chief recruitment process. Mr. Freeman, if you don't mind running this one for us.
Yes, sir. So I'll give a little bit of a background because we do have a new council member, Mr. Reed. Back in March is when we started this process, and I sent an email to council kind of recapping the thought process and how we were going to proceed forward, since there wasn't an immediate need to fill the position because we have a very qualified command staff in the police department that allows us the luxury to be thoughtful in our approach to this search process for such a key position. So back in March is when we appointed Jimmy Johnson as our interim police chief for the foreseeable future as we go through this process. That also gave us the ability to give our other command staff, our captains, an ability to step up on an interim basis, rotating to get some experience as assistant chief, which we thought would benefit the team to get that leadership experience as we go through this process. So what I laid out in that email also is that we'd go through a request for proposal process. We have done that so far. We issued that in late March, and they had until the end of April to submit their responses. We had a great response. 10 different firms submitted for it, which was much higher than I thought we would get for the request. All extremely qualified. We narrowed that down to 3 and then got it down to a single one to move forward with. Still in the process of negotiating and finalizing an agreement to move forward. But a little details as far as what the next steps might look like. We would hope to get that agreement finalized within the next couple of weeks or so we can begin our process with the recruitment firm. What that would focus like, we'd kick off with a project meeting with internal city management staff, HR, as far as logistics of the search. But what we'd immediately move into is our stakeholder engagement. That includes reaching out to council, employees internally to the department, but we would also have outreach and opportunities for the community to get involved, whether it's our community panel that the police department works with, citizens at large, you name it. We want to try and get as much feedback in this process as possible. This includes survey opportunities for the community, surveying our police department staff as well, give them an opportunity to weigh in if they don't have the opportunity to meet with the consultants in person to provide their feedback. So as part of our RFP process, we made it very clear that this is going to be an engagement process. We want feedback. Anytime you have a key position like this, you want to make sure we know what direction we're heading, what qualities do we want to see and achieve, what's the direction of the police department. So a lot of buy-in on the front end. So based on all that community engagement, that's when we'll move forward in developing the profile for the brochure and all the advertising that they'll use to try and gather candidates for the position. Go through an advertising time period after that, and then they'll start to hone in on identifying the candidates, vetting them, going through some of their backgrounds. They'll screen them, do some interviews if they need to on their end, and then they'll also do some of the comprehensive background checks on that front end before we ever see them, so we know that we're getting quality candidates, that we're not going to have somebody kind of slip through the cracks that isn't qualified or has something on their record that wouldn't allow them to even serve as a police chief. So we want to get that all taken care of on the front end. They will provide us a detailed screening report on recommended, qualified, or a narrowed down list of candidates. So we're looking at 6 to 8 that they would hone in on as their recommended candidates, but on top of that, we would also get the resumes and cover letters of all of them in case we see something in there that looks like, hey, that person might be a good fit to consider in this process. So we still have that opportunity as well. After that is, of course, when we move into the interview process. Again, we want it to be engaging, so it's not going to just be me and the city manager interviewing these candidates. We want a community process. There will most likely be a few different panels made up of various stakeholders to at least provide feedback, buy-in. We're not asking them to rank or pick one, but we want to know what their thoughts are on those candidates. And then ultimately honing in on a final candidate that is ultimately the city manager's recommendation that ultimately goes to council for approval. That's not only in our codes, but state law requires a chief of police to be approved by the governing body. So that would be the final step in the process. Speaking with the recruitment firm that we're finalizing with, we could likely have this done and someone possibly hired by the end of the year. My hope was at most have somebody by January, but we're on track. We could have someone in sooner based on their availability, notice, and all that. The reason we're kind of in the time period we were going through, we of course had the council elections. We want people to know who their council is, and then we wanted to get through this budget process coming up. We didn't want somebody to step in right in the middle of a budget process, which is a pretty challenging situation for a new employee. So we thought we'd try and get it toward the end of the year. So we're right on path with the plan so far. So happy to take any questions or feedback you might have.
Questions for Deputy Freeman, Council? No.
I mean, in the search process, and you may have said this, but so obviously as people apply, there's a certain sense of privacy that we don't reveal who they are.
Yes.
Is there a point where generally does the consultant recommending maybe making 3 available to the public or letting the public meet people, kind of like we did with the city
Yes,
manager?
so yeah, we would have that stakeholder interview process, but I think we would also have a meet and greet type process as well, so everyone could come in and meet those final candidates and know who they are and what their backgrounds are.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so I appreciate that. I think if we just could speak a little more clearly to the committee versus the panelist side, that way the public hears that. Is that panel someone that you would put together? Is that?
Yes, we work with the recruitment firm to try and get a diverse group of stakeholders.
Okay.
Some of those would be employees. We'd have maybe it's a civilian in the PD, a sergeant, a lieutenant, the different ranks, and then we'd probably have a community panel of different stakeholder groups in the community. But
Okay.
we try and work through that process to make a diverse group.
And so search firm, step 1. Step 2, maybe start stakeholder engagements, community involvement, panel that will be put together while you're out for RFP or RFQ. Do you while the application's open, I should say.
Right.
Do you feel like staff has a good vision from council as a governing body for what the vision is for APD? And those strengths and qualities we're looking at for that department?
I think we do, but part of that process, the recruiter will actually speak one-on-one phone calls to try and gauge some of that as well, which I think will be important since we do have a new member on council to get that buy-in. But I think we have a pretty good idea just from the last couple of years of what direction we're heading.
Great. Yeah. So I think that gets us to the point to where you're back through that panel and you're narrowing this down. It goes through the recommendation process of staff, and then the appointment is by the governing body.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, confirmation, yeah. Confirmation of the appointment. Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah, I appreciate you restating it. I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard the process.
Yes, sir.
Kind of broken down in those steps. And then we appreciate the update, council. If you've got nothing further, then we'll move forward.
And I think our goal would be to have this on an agenda every so often just to provide an update during the process so everybody know what's going on, and if there's an opportunity to give feedback through a survey, those sorts of things. So.
Yeah, I think if you could do some updates as you make progress, so once search firm is narrowed down, once applicants or panel is selected, that'd be great to communicate.
We'll do that.
Okay. Good presentation. Thank you, Deputy.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to move into item 9C, request for future agenda items. Do I have anything that anyone needs put on for the agenda next? No? Okay, great. So we have successfully made it all the way through that item. We're going to give Councilman Sherlin a little time on item 8N. And then I'm going to push forward here into our non-consent. So if staff would be so gracious as to remind me not to forget item 8N if we get to the end of the agenda, because I could do it. And Mrs. Storrs, if you don't mind walking us into Ordinance number 8199.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, and I also wanted to mention we're working to get that contract to y'all's emails right away, so you should have that pretty quick. Thank you. So we have an item here to consider an ordinance related to some certificates of obligation that we actually put out on a competitive bid earlier today, and we got very good results of it. So I wanted to just real quick remind y'all of what this is and introduce our bond counsel and our financial advisors that assisted with this. So back in April, actually last year during the budget process, we talked about some street projects that were needed. What we're discussing today is for streets resurfacing. This would be a 10-year issuance, and the goal would be to hopefully do this on an annual basis so we could have a recurring funding stream going forward to fund streets. So on April 8th, we brought a presentation to you all and had an estimated interest rate. We are very pleased that we were able to achieve a much lower interest rate today from the winning bid, and looking to save approximately $400,000 over the life of this debt from what we originally anticipated. So very excited about that. So I'm going to introduce Paul Jason with Specialized Public Finance, and then we also have Bob Dransfield, your bond counsel, in the audience to answer any questions as well. Okay, and you can use this.
Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City staff. Paul Jason with Specialized Public Finance. Laura did a great job summarizing the transaction. He took bids this morning. We got 6 bids. The low bid was 3.27% from BOK Financial Services. This is a fixed rate. As Laura mentioned, it's a 10-year, slightly less than 10 years, around 9.5 years rates. We're very pleased that the rates came in lower than we anticipated. On that meeting on April 8th that Laura mentioned, this was the meeting that Council authorized the resolution moving forward. That really kicked off the process for the COs. And then we're here today to have this council consider the ordinance. If you do approve that ordinance today, we'll move forward. Your bond counsel, Bob Dransfield, is here to answer any legal questions about the process, but we'll close on July 10th. And part of the process, the city got the AAA rating affirmed. That's, again, an accomplishment to maintain that rating. The bid summary is on this page. What we look at is really the high to low. There's around 26 basis points between the high and low bidders. Some of these bidders have supported the city in the past. We appreciate all the bids supported by these firms. And again, the final rate was around 3.27%. The sources and uses of the transaction, the legal amount of the COs is $11.2 million. Council approved the notice of intent for 12.5, so we came in below that. This funds $11.86 million in projects. Bidders bid a premium, so they wanted a coupon rate higher than the prevailing market rate. That premium goes to the city and helps fund the proceeds. The debt is structured, level debt. The final maturity is 2/15 of 35, and again, this is a fixed rate for the life of this transaction. It's just an interest rate chart. Rates have obviously run up since 2021, but it's still a favorable time to borrow. As you can see, the high range is around 13.4%, and the low was around 2% in 2021. We're coming in at still a pretty favorable time to borrow debt. Unless there's any questions by council and staff, we're recommending that the council award the $11.2 million combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation 2025A to BOK Financial Services.
Any questions for Mr. Jason? Okay, just as a remark or a statement, to Mr. Hooper for pushing this forward, getting this put into that overall streets plan where, you've got Durapatchers that are out there catching little bitty potholes and doing mitigation and trying to prevent things from getting worse. But now you've got street resurfacing, possible mill and overlay. You also have large projects like Georgia Street that we're looking forward to. We're hoping to see maybe Osage coming on, before too long. And so as you continue to steer and drive, we see more and more good things moving, and we feel like this is the best way for council to support you. Even though this is a debt issuance, we're not going to maybe cash fund our way out of this. And so if future councils see that this 10-year look is a good way to continue to support that, then we've built into our current tax rate a revolving line of credit that would hopefully grow from 11 million to say 14 million in annualized projects, and that you guys would have somewhat of that interest in sinking budget built into your rate. If you got anything to comment.
No, just thank you for the support on that. We're ready to go. This would be cape sealing, mill and overlay, microsurfacing projects, all the things that we talked about in that presentation that we gave you back in April. We're already pushing forward with assessment and moving toward what we would be doing in these updates, and we'll look forward to continued work over the summers to get a lot of work done. I think it's going to be one of the bigger projects we've been able to accomplish and put us back on track with keeping up with what we need to be keeping up with. So thank you for the support on that for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate the push, the diligence, and then all hands on deck approach. And so please keep moving with the direction you're going. So council would look for a motion on item 10A.
Move to adopt ordinance number 8199.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with a 5-0 vote. We will move on now. Item 10B. Mr. Danforth, I believe this one is yours, sir.
Mayor and Council, we're bringing back the Service Center Complex contract. It was tabled so that the mayor would have a chance to review the blueprints and the bidding process, as well as we received a secondary bid on the project as well. Plains Builders is still the low bid. It was a difference of about $15,000 between the two. But we were satisfied with where we ended up in the project. Just as a refresher, we'll go through the PowerPoint again so you can see exactly what all was entailed. This provides a more efficient and modern space for the Water Distribution Department, relocates the Drainage Department to the former Water Distribution offices, and the project aligns with the recommendation and the space studies completed by the Guernsey Company back in 2020 to increase the efficiencies of operations at the service center. The goal is to ensure all departments have adequate space for current and future needs. Obviously, we're looking at this construction not only for what we need this year, but for what we need in the future. The current condition of the current space, that was built back in the early 1960s. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is obsolete, no longer meets any of the current standards and energy standards. The restrooms do not comply with ADA standards, which is required for our type of facility. The entrance does not comply with ADA standards, and the current condition of the office is obviously outdated and needs renovation. This is the front entrance as it sits right now. We just completed the concrete slab work in front of that. You guys saw that when we did the ribbon cutting for the fuel islands. As you can see, the ADA ramp does not meet any kind of compliance, and the front entrance needs new concrete and handicap spots identified there as well. This is an overview of that space, so you can see the completeness of that. The building itself is almost 90,000 square feet, which really enhanced operations. Really works well with us when we're in emergency situations dealing with snow or any other type of civil emergency that requires quick response from either the streets, public works departments, or the utilities departments. This is a look at some of the equipment that's in there. Like I said, obviously this is outdated equipment. We won't be utilizing the stuff that currently exists because it can't service that area and wasn't servicing it when it got taken out of commission. Restrooms as they currently look, the office space as it currently looks, asbestos that we're going to be dealing with in several of those areas through the demolition process. The Drainage Department will be moving as a result of the land exchange with Potter County. the drainage department requires additional office spaces and an expanded shop area. Water distribution has outgrown its current space in the service center, so relocating them to this area made logistical sense because we can build to what they need without having to modify an existing structure in the main building for the service center. Enhanced workflow by relocation of water distribution to the same building where their equipment and all of their operational components are stored. This is the floor plan. It's a two-story floor plan that we're looking at. Mayor, I appreciate you coming out and walking through that with me, getting a better understanding of the full scope of the project. It's difficult to, I understand as a council, you got to have a certain amount of faith in us that we know what we're doing on this, but having a second set of eyes coming out and seeing exactly what we're dealing with, we find that beneficial. So the office relocation plan, water distribution, obviously, as I stated earlier, will relocate to that new space that was just reflected in the floor plan. Drainage will move into the space that water distribution was in. We're asking that you consider this presentation as, or that jumped into the Civic Center, okay. So that gets you to the conclusion of this, so I'd entertain any questions on this.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
A couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
How long have we owned this building?
You know, I'll ask Mr. Hartman. Huh? 2001 or 2, if we've owned it.
And why did we go to Sourcewell for bidding when we've had it this long that we could have taken it out for bids?
I think this one is text buy.
This is actually text buy. This is not Sourcewell. Yes.
Okay.
And the reason we...
Same agreement, though.
Same agreement?
It's the same type of agreement, yes,
Okay,
sir. It's
so-
still a state-controlled pricing contract.
Okay. Why didn't we take it out to bid?
Predominantly because we currently had Plains Builders, as I reflected earlier, were already on site doing work for us in that area. We looked to take advantage of not having to remobilize, not having to demobilize, and we knew that we had controlled pricing in that area.
Okay, that's the same answer you basically gave me 2 weeks ago for the parking lots.
That would have been the value
So
to use.
I
yes.
still disagree with this way of doing business. I mean, I think the city, we've had this for plenty of time. There's no reason this should not have gone out for a good bid amongst everybody. What we're doing here is picking and choosing contractors of who you like or however it works. I don't like the way it works because the citizens of Amarillo have a right to know they're getting a good quality bid and not something that's said, the state says it's okay. That doesn't make it right. You're not giving every contractor in Amarillo the same ability to bid. That's not right. We're picking and choosing winners and losers. That is not the city's job, in my opinion. Now, y'all told me last time this is legal, and it is legal. It's not right. It's not morally right. The citizens of Amarillo need to have trust in their city staff. And right now, I'm going to say this, I don't have trust because I don't know what the bids are. I'll leave it right there for the moment.
We appreciate your current concerns, Councilmember Sherland. If the council would like to direct us going forward, we would take guidance.
Go right ahead, sir.
No, that's fine. I think some additional information that would be useful here. You did get another bid on this project, correct?
Yes, we did.
Was it through Sourcewell or was it through?
That was actually another government contract bidded as well, yes.
Right. So you and I sat down and we talked, or you and I and Grayson, and we grouped because Tom brought this up before, and because we have these co-ops that we can go to, for efficiency or whatever reason or urgency, we asked that, we proposed, why not use them as almost a bid source? Like if we have these individuals, we could go to different ones and get different bids, right, for the same job.
That's correct. We can.
Right. So we did that on this one and found out that Plains Builders was less than, was it Tri-State this time?
That's correct.
So it was less.
Did we see a copy of that other bid? I didn't.
Yeah, no.
Did y'all get a copy of it?
No, I think
I
the
did.
process is different, but what I requested, to your point, was to let's look at these things and see. Now, there's some efficiencies, and I think we'll talk about some other stuff here in a sec, but I appreciated you at least going to that and seeing, is there almost not a low bid, but is there somebody else, another local contractor that could do this for less, being good stewards of, taxpayer dollars, making sure we're not getting taken just because it's a government program that's legal, but to be a good steward over it. So I appreciate y'all doing that, and I think it showed that maybe it is working, or maybe that it is. Anyway, so I think that's good information that I think to be shared. You want to?
No, I'm going to jump over here to Councilman Reed real quick.
I'm just interested in what the original amount was that was budgeted for this project.
Actually, this project is funded out of the operations of the departments that were affected in this project. So in other words, the water department is out of their operational funding is a part of this. Drainage is a part of this. Facilities is a part of this. So we're not coming to you for additional funding. The departments have, in essence, taken and through efficiency saved money to where they could perform this out of their own operational expenses.
Okay, so that even though it says that it was budgeted for, there wasn't a dollar amount that they said this
It
is what-
wasn't, no, sir. What we looked at was we estimated on this job that it was going to take around $2 million and communicated that with the departments. And then the department said, all right, this is what our goal is. And so they worked to saving that amount of money for us to be able to perform those projects through efficiencies and through different means and methods. They did everything they could to where we wouldn't have to come to you for additional funding.
Thank you.
Do we actually have I mean, you said we didn't budget it per se.
Correct.
But we got a number here.
Correct.
How do we know that number correlates with what you're going to spend?
Mr. Sherlin, typically what we do when we have any construction project, and Mayor Stanley and I had this discussion rather intensively throughout this process. What we do, especially with my construction background and history, we go back into a project and we look at the scope of the project. And then we do a physical takeoff of the project to get a true estimated number. That's the reason the majority of the time when you see me come before you with a construction project, generally it's within that scope. As I shared with you at the previous presentation of this, we actually VE'd this project down almost $500,000 from what the original proposed price was, so that we could stay within that budget savings that those departments had identified we would have funding to be able to do. So in doing so, we're able to do that with government contracts, whereas if we just go out to bid as a bid proposal, we have to accept that low bid, and I don't have the ability to VE it through the process. So through the process, we've determined that this is the number that we've got to hit. And those government contractors can work with us through that process to hit those numbers.
So we're guaranteed we won't have any overrides on this project? That's in our contract and everything?
It will be, yes, sir.
It will be, or
The
it
only
is?
way you would see a price increase would be if we change the scope or ask for something additional.
Okay, so it is in the contract?
Yes, sir. What you
And
referred-
we do have a contract?
Yes, sir. And what you referred to earlier, we had a contract at the previous meeting. I think the misunderstanding is when Mayor Stanley asked me if I could give the line items, I can't give the line items because that puts the breakdown of how that contractor put the bid together. The contract existed, but the line items, I can't advertise those until after the contract is awarded because I can't share the information of if I was to do that every time I came up here and you asked for that, it would be like me asking Mayor Stanley, show me exactly what you charge per square foot to do a job. That ethically, I don't want to put our contractors, any contractor in the city of Amarillo in that position.
Can I jump in real quick? Did you have a point you need to make, or you good? Don't forget it. So let me attempt to redirect this a little bit. I'm in total support of the project. I'm in total support of the service center. I've been in the building. I see the need for it. This is a working council that we believe in infrastructure. We believe in our staff, and that those boots on the ground matter, and we want them to have restrooms that function and office space. And so I'm hopeful that all of council can support the project. I think where we're struggling here a little bit, Mr. City Manager, is we need a process that I think is typical and adopted and in line with the way council has seen things go in the previous year or two. And so, Mr. Danforth, I appreciate you being willing to let me be candid in our conversations, because you and I did. We jumped into this, and in this value engineering, this VE term that we're using so that all the public can hear, if you're going to go through a cooperative agreement process, you may have some pros that come along with that. Maybe you can say, well, we've already accepted to work alongside of this contractor, but we still have the opportunity to go back and forth with council, with engineers, value engineers, something before we award it. That would, in my estimation, that would be very beneficial, because I know you can take architect, engineers, put them on a plan. You can get all sorts of hard bid totals that are higher than what you wanted because nobody had a good hard spec that we held to. And so in this particular one, you and I went and looked at it because your price per square foot's a little skewed. And so you were forthcoming and you gave me quite a bit. And so, Mr. Path, I think what I would hope is if council could give a little direction moving forward, that what we would like to see in these value engineered, cooperative agreements, maybe some better guidelines in how we utilize those versus maybe not having typical construction projects that we do still want to honor those public monies that are going out to everybody that's signed up and meets criteria. You're bonded. You're able to bid on this work. We want to give opportunity. So some of the struggle here, I'd say, is in the process, not in the project. So yes, sir.
Yes, one of the requests of the previous council meeting was to bring back a presentation on purchasing. So we are preparing that. We didn't have it ready to go yet. But purchasing department is preparing that presentation. And so part of the goal with that is that if that city council wished to give us guidance. And again, these projects here have been in the works now for a couple months here. So we didn't foresee these conversations when we started the process. We've been following our normal procedure for the last several years, including state law and state regulations. These are all legal processes that have all been procured through state control pricing. So, but with that though, if council would like to guide us on different direction, we just seek guidance from the council and on this. So we're just bringing this to you as where they are today.
Yeah, let me add to maybe our conversation, and the process that you've chosen right now is to go through a cooperative purchasing agreement. You've selected a contractor, and you're wanting council to support that and award that contract. And we're in this value engineering term, and so you and I looked at that. The MENPs, were higher than, and you correct me if I'm speaking on your behalf, but in our discussion, the MENPs are higher than what you could spend if you chose to go back and redesign those. And by MENP, I mean mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So the mechanical cost on this line item was roughly, I don't know, twice what you could get it done for. But it's a Cadillac. It's a different system, and it's something that you prefer. The plumbing was high as well. Could have been value engineered on everything from fixtures probably to the way in which it was designed. But all of that to say, that's not necessarily council's job, is to bring this here. But if we worked really hard on this, a potential of $200,000-$300,000 to bring this down from 195 to say 175. You would have the opportunity to take that back with that contractor, rework those MENP plans, bring that back to council, and then council could move forward if you were directed to do so. Is that what we're understanding?
There is the potential to do that. Here's the challenge of that. And as you and I discussed, we'll talk the mechanical, so that's easy to deal with. when we're talking the mechanical system on this, and keep in mind, we're talking heavy commercial utilization operations. That facility actually has 6 different kinds of functions that occur within that office complex. So just having a uniform HVAC system, we would still have to build in the control systems and everything else. So even if we were to say a 20-ton rooftop unit costs this much money to service this much square footage, the control systems would be expensive on that. So it wouldn't really equate to a cost per square foot in a scenario like this, because we're going to have office staff that is not exposed to everything. We'll have meeting areas, which is a larger area that has a different kind of heating and cooling load. Then we're talking about areas where the field guys are walking in and out all day long processing work orders. Well, that's got a different kind of load. So you look at all of that, and then we take a look too as far as cost of operations for the city. In other words, we've got those systems in place in this building, in the Sims building, in multiple structures throughout the building, throughout the city. In doing so, we've created a certain level of uniformity to where for the facilities department, we're looking at, all right, I've got these replacement parts to keep this facility, and not just this facility, but all those facilities that it mingles with all of them. So I look at the efficiencies of having that, not having to carry a separate inventory for a different style of system. So we've got that efficiency. We looked at, like I said, the control systems. That increases dramatically when we start trying to make a big unit. That was part of the problems we had at Old City Hall, and we have some in our older structures that we can't get uniform temperatures throughout those buildings because we got one unit that controls the entire building, but we have different functions throughout the building and different loads. So it creates a logistical challenge when we build out like that. This set of plans was actually an engineered set of plans that was done, and we're required to meet those engineering specs. For us to make a change, for an example, Mayor, as you and I talked, if I was to make that change, I would have to go back to the engineers that designed this and ask them to redesign it so that when we pull a permit, we're just like every other contractor. We have to meet those standards. We can't go outside of those standards. To a certain degree, we're held to a higher standard because we cannot circumvent the building codes for the city of Amarillo. So we have to meet those. And in doing so, sometimes it costs us a little bit more money in those scenarios.
Right.
The MEP, when we talk about the plumbing, you're right. If we were looking at a bare developmental site and we're not going in there and cutting concrete and doing asbestos abatement, that number works that you had in your head. But as you and I talked about, no, I've got to go in there and cut concrete out to put in new sewer lines. I've got to go and dig those old cast iron sewer lines out, replace those, lay new sewer lines. Then, by code, the way I have to bed that's a little bit different than what you would do on your standard new construction project. So I think you and I were able to come to an understanding where some of those costs came in that quite justly shocked you to begin with, and it would have me too. So that's
Sure.
where we ended up with some of those numbers.
And I want to
Yeah.
contribute on kind of the supporting testimony of if my company bid those exact same plans as drawn, I think it would run that 1.9 as well.
Right.
So I'm not criticizing the overall cost. I'm just talking about the process.
Right.
So in the way it's drawn, I think the value is there. I've looked at it. You've looked at it. You've had a third party that gave you a competitive quote. You've got one that you want to award. I think where the comfort is that maybe council doesn't have is in maybe moving forward with some better guidelines on how we use these cooperative agreements, purchasing agreements. So, Mr. Danforth, I know you and I talked about like in the way in which these are a huge value. If you're going to go out and buy 10 F-150s and you want to go buy them on buy board, it may be super fast and easy, and you know what that F-150 costs you, and you've got all sorts of things that are efficient. And we want business to run and government to run business more efficiently. However, when we're dealing with typical construction projects where we do have time, we're not under, like a special circumstance, would you say, and you and I use the $1 million, so I'm not going to try to make it look like we've never talked. Would you say, you know, if you had a small project in the scheme of city work would be under $1 million, that cooperative purchasing agreement may be a good value. But when we're getting into $3, $4, $5 million projects, would we be better to go back to a typical bid and an award? So we just have competitive bid with contractors. We put it on bonfire. We let everybody bid it.
Well, I'm going to let the city manager correct me if I'm making a misstatement, but there again, this comes back to you as a council giving us directions as to what you want us to do. If you want to put $1 million cap on Sourcewell and then everything above that, we are fully capable of doing that. And I think that's a discussion that when purchasing does that presentation to you, I think you'll have the information to be able to say, hey, any project like that, maybe you put a caveat in it and you say, hey, if this is a project that we need you to start on right now, we're going to waive that cap so that you guys can start on it right now with the buy board contract. All of those discussions are valid, and they would be helpful to staff because staff is operating under what we've been directed to operate under. This is not a selection where staff is going out and just picking and choosing contractors. That's not where we want to be. We don't want that perception to exist like Mr. Sherlin shared with you earlier. That's not our goal. Our goal is to get the best project and the best price we can for the city of Amarillo. And that's always been our goal and always will be.
Well, and we want council to support you. So council is doing their due diligence of making sure that monies are provided in the budget and that you guys can go out and award parking lots. Right. And then we're turning back around after the monies have been identified and we're questioning the way in which we did the procurement. And so I think, and council, you guys weigh in here, but I think that we could work towards some guidelines on these cooperative purchasing agreements that fit manufactured items, you know, bulk inventory purchases that are off-the-shelf items. We're not questioning those. I don't think this council has questioned any of that. But when we are getting to typical construction projects, and we want to advertise those construction projects, and we want to take the time that it takes in order to put those out for bid, make sure your designs are correct, make sure that we have done the value engineering from staff, it would give a lot more confidence to this council in knowing that the procurement process has been followed where we avoid those other perceptions. I appreciate you being willing to discuss that this way. I would ask council, do we feel totally comfortable with these cooperative agreements? Would y'all like to bring that back with this type of guidance so that staff could bring that back to us? Do you have anything else you want to weigh in on?
Well, I think before we start thinking about policy or guidance, we need education. At least I do. I mean, I tried to look a little bit into, these, whatever you want to call them, are used across the state. And so, and I don't know if I've got a real good perception of how they work down to get to the price that we get. And then there's some, and as I understand, but I'm not an expert on this, that there could be some competitive, it's not like, there's some work to get down to get to the price that they're coming with. It's just not like somebody's going in and saying, but I think before I feel comfortable in offering any advice, I'd like to see the presentation. I'd like to hear from procurement. I'd like to hear how this works. And after that advice, there may not be any need to give any specific guidance, or we may say, staff, use the guidance that you think is best to use on this, or we may say, hey, there may be a need for that. But I think for me, I've just got to learn a lot more about this process before I'd be willing to support any kind of guidance or suggestions on that. So if we're going to set up the education session in July, I'd like to set that up, give us a chance to really dig into that, get questions answered, and then once we feel comfortable that we have a knowledge base, then moving forward to say, okay, here's how we need to alter anything if we do need to do that.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a good point. You know, the education piece isn't just for us up here, but it's for all who are watching and seeing the business that we're trying to do in public. And so, you know, cooperative purchasing agreement, we're not trying to take that tool out of your hand. We're also not trying to run everything through a co-op agreement and get away from advertising for bids and building that bidder base. Councilman, did you have something?
No, I would say the same thing in the presentation. I'm guessing Mike will probably bring it, but on the pros and cons of the cooperatives, you know, what do we gain out of it? What efficiencies do we gain, if any, you know, versus the traditional bid type process? And when I think, like Les said, just the educational piece for everybody involved. and to see, because again, we want the efficiencies. I told Cole the day we talked, and we have people gripe that government's not efficient, not moving fast enough. Then we choose a way to move a little bit quicker, and now we have complaints about that. So I think we just need to be educated on it and go, okay, so what makes sense, right? And to be a good steward again. So I would agree with Les. I think it will be better positioned to make policy once we've been educated.
I think you said it the best. It's not just for us, it's for the public that's here to hear how that procurement takes place and why one is chosen over another at a given time. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, and I don't believe we have a Sourcewell project that's on the agenda on the 24th. So, I mean, we'll get this meeting in July. We're not anticipating you guys continuing to bring projects, especially knowing that, we've got some questions here that we don't have great clarity on our side. And we want to work alongside staff very well, and we appreciate the identification of the monies. But we still understand our job as oversight is making sure that those monies, we're accountable for every dollar. I mean, you've seen us argue over an $80,000 taco truck, right? And so, this is a $300,000 efficiency that could be made. So it's good to hear what you have to add to it. I do want to go back to Councilman Sherlin. So there is a contract. It's not in this, but can we get a copy of the contract for?
Absolutely.
We are awarding a contract, correct, on item 10B? Or
Yes,
you're awarding a project?
To Plains Builders, that's correct.
Okay. So, Councilman Sherlin, are you comfortable voting on this item before you look at that contract, or do you want a copy of that contract and then we'll bring this one back as well?
Well, I would prefer to see a contract, but basically this is my last meeting, so.
Contracts available?
I believe it should be.
Okay. Let's get that contract emailed to Councilman Sherlin, and we can vote on that item after we recess.
Yeah, we may need a recess. So obviously we didn't come prepared for that. Had we known, we could have brought that to the meeting, but we can try to work on that. We may need a recess to get it to you, though.
Okay. Well, right now, we have the expectation moving forward with item 10B. We want everybody to hear us say that. We're just going to take a minute to do our due diligence to make sure that council has seen all the documents before voting on it. We all know that's good business practice. And, Councilman Sherlin, I appreciate you bringing it up on you being able to see that contract. So, Mr. Danforth, while I've got you here, I think it would be nice to talk about 10C.
Okay.
And then I'm going to recess us after that, and then that way you don't have to come back up necessarily on either of those two items. We could have looked over the documents, and I'll bring them forward for a vote.
Well, I almost hate to talk about 10C right now because we're going right back into a Sourcewell contract. But this is an example of why Sourcewell has certain advantages that we don't have in a straight bid process. And as we go through this, before I get started, though, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Terry Wright. Let's see, where are you at, Terry? Here we go. Terry's the president of the venue district, and I'm sure he would be happy to confirm the headaches we've been going through to get this project forward. So the Civic Center restroom remodel, let me give you some of the facts real quick. The purpose of the remodel is to replace the deteriorating cast iron and PVC piping to improve the flow and reduce maintenance in the Civic Center. Install energy-efficient modern fixtures and enhance the aesthetics and functionality while reducing maintenance needs. Ensure compliance with ADA regulations and improve accessibility for all users by adding grab bars, widening stall doors, and adjusting fixture heights. The current condition of the Civic Center, as you guys remember, last year I came before you and told you about the collapsed line that we had the emergency repair on. This line is actually tied into the east bank of restrooms around the Coliseum. What we experienced and what we saw when we started doing those emergency repairs, the cast iron pipe was actually collapsing and failing in multiple places. This is what we looked at when we ended up pulling the pipe out of the ground. As you can see, it was in pretty bad condition. The restrooms themselves, at the time that they were built in the 60s, was probably a good idea, but from a sanitary perspective, that mosaic tile is awful tough to maintain and keep clean. We have some health concerns there. When you look at the restroom, or at the dividers for the stalls, you see that we do not meet compliance in a lot of those areas. We've actually had toilets being pulled off of the walls because the hangers that the toilets hang off of are corroded and falling apart. This is a long view of what you're looking at in that area. The restrooms are actually old glazed block walls that have been painted over multiple times just to keep that restroom operational. The proposed plan going forward is to provide a clean, modern appearance, including new tile, toilet partitions, and mirrors. We'll actually be cutting the entire cement floor out of those restrooms to meet ADA compliance. Enhance the sanitization of that with smooth, non-porous, easy-to-clean surfaces. Modernize the fixtures such as the urinals, toilets, and sinks and faucets, and upgrade to new LED lighting in those areas. These are the floor plans that you're going to be looking at going forward. As you notice in this, in some of these areas we actually lose a hole just to pick up ADA compliance. But you can understand why we would have to cut out that entire slab and re-pour all of that. This is a artistic rendering of what the new restrooms would look like, a lot more cleaner, a lot more energy efficient. The conclusion of this, and before I get into I'll do the update on the reason why we did what we did. Moving forward with the restroom remodel will replace the aging infrastructure, provide code-compliant environment, improve the functionality, and transform the space into a modern, user-friendly facility. We've been dealing with this project for almost 2 years. We reached out to the seventh firm that, for lack of a better phrase, we kind of strong-armed to take the job. We were rejected by 6 different groups that did not, because this is such a complex project, because of the timing of events within the Coliseum, and because of the challenges of the collapsed pipe and the lack of a historical documentation as far as what's underground there. There was a lot of people that just walked away and said, this job is a lot more than I want to do. The challenge that we ran into, knowing that when we engaged with Sims Architects to do this work for us, which was the architects that just completed City Hall. So when we engaged them, we said, for lack of a better phrase, I said, you got the gravy, now you're going to get you're going to get the other end of the deal. I need somebody to do this job. And Sims Architects agreed to do the job with us. It was a challenge, and as the architects and engineers looked at this, they needed a contractor to work alongside them to help them with the best means and methods to do this job in a timeline that would work. Understand, the reason this is in front of you right now, we just got this completed. We utilize Sourcewell basically as a skinny version of a CMAR contractor. They sat there and worked alongside the architect saying, if you use this method, we could save you some money. If you do this, this will let us move faster. So that was the scenario we worked in this instance. So that's the reason you're looking at a Sourcewell contract on this one. Historically, we would have liked to have bid this project out because it is a bigger project. But because we engaged this Sourcewell contractor in this instance, they had already invested the time in helping in the design and the construction means and methods for this project. That's the reason they're brought to you on this instance. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you need Terry to come up and address them. Like I said, they've been a patient partner working with us. We've been working with them for 2 years on this. I can tell you that historically, about every other meeting, they were asking, when are we going to get this job done? So that's where we're at.
Clarify funding real quick, and then we'll go to Councilman Sherling. Funding for this is in the event venue district?
This is venue district funding, and Laura can give you some clarification.
Money set aside for this exact purpose?
Yes, it's been put aside the last few years, and it's fully funded without any city dollars going into it.
So, Council, I know we have an oversight duty here, but then we should and we would rely pretty heavily on that board directing this. And, I mean, I think conversations that have been had lately are concessions, updating the concessions areas and continuing to update Civic Center. So I think we're going to push in the same direction that you guys are pushing. We definitely see the need for the updates on the restrooms and the concession areas, doing everything we can with what we've got to work with over there. The funding piece does matter, I think, in this. It's not coming out of the general fund. So, Councilman Sherlin.
This is one I would agree with Sourcewell on.
Okay.
To me, it's an emergency type situation. We've been working on it 2 years. You just got the stuff. I can agree with that. It's when we have these projects. I've had a building for 20 years, and all of a sudden we got to do something else. But I'll agree with this.
So, and we can give you the contract on this one as well, too, for you to review it, and then that way you can say you've vetted it. But I would come back to this one, and I would just say, like, the Civic Center in and of itself is an animal. And the reason it is because it gets used way more than what we, even though we like to criticize and it's aged and we need all this and we wanted a new one, and the argument's been had now for almost a decade. But, like, that girl gets a lot of use, and that is not an appealing project. In the logistics of getting in and out, plus with there being concealed conditions and a lot in there. So I'm backing, we're trying to back you up as much as we can. Keep in mind, I'm playing a little politics up here, and, I want guidelines on our cooperative agreements. I'm not comfortable with just handing everything over and all of a sudden everything just goes through Sourcewell. This is a good example of there's a time and a place to use that tool out of your toolbox. I think council has the wherewithal to see when it benefits you and extend that in the form of trust. Then there's also a time to have that hard bid total and us award the project through to a group of contractors that all had a fair shot. Everybody looked at it. Great example was from Mitch Norman. I don't think we expected 33 was the answer when we said how many people have looked at this contract. Well, there were 33 vendors that all got a shot at that city business. And so I think if we're saying it rightly, we're trying to move forward with pushing this, but some good guidelines on how we utilize those tools in the toolbox is what we're looking for, not any pushback on these projects. Council, anything further? No? Am I correct there are contracts available for item 10B and C that have been sent to us to read?
Yes, I emailed the one from the consent item, the temporary staffing services, that went, and then item 10B is in the works. I'll have that to you all here in just a second.
Great. And so will you be able to send 10C as well?
Yes, we will. We can round that one up too.
So I would ask for council to read quickly, if you feel that is your due diligence, to look that document over so that we have seen the documents that we're awarding, and then to come back after the recess ready to move forward on item 10B and C. We'll pull back up item 8N as well, and then we'll move into our last two items. So if you guys would bear with us, we're going to take a 15-minute recess. We appreciate staff for getting that documentation to us. Thank you. on our side and communication. So we'll call ourselves back into session, and we are going to go ahead and pull up item 8N and bring that item back up. Council, can I get a motion on item 8N?
I move to award the temporary employment staffing services contract as presented in item 8N.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 8N passes. We'll now move into item 10B. We have been given the documentation for review. Council, has everybody reviewed everything that you felt like you needed to? Okay, would request a motion on item 10B.
I move to award item 10B, the Service Center Complex Office Remodel as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from place 2. Any further discussion on item 10B? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 10B passes with a 5-0 vote. We'll now pull up item 10C. Do I have any questions on item 10C from any of the council? Would request a motion on 10C.
I'll make a motion, we accept 10C as stated.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second from place 1. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item 10C passes. We will now move into item 10D, which is a public hearing. We're going to bring Mr. Brady Kendrick up here to discuss what's going on the south side of town.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing and consideration of Ordinance 8200. This is a ordinance to consider annexing into the city of Amarillo on petition of the property owners territory described as a 477.36 acre tract of unplatted land that is located in sections 32, 33, 36, and 37 of Block 9 BS&F Survey, Randall County, Texas. This is in the vicinity of Interstate 27 and Sundown Lane, and the applicants are Furman Land Surveyors, Inc., representing Atterbury Elevators, LLC, and Josh Langham, representing Larry Taylor. And on the screen right there on the map, the yellow is the private property that is being requested, that is requesting annexation. And the areas in blue are the adjacent right-of-ways that are under proposal for annexation as well, which includes I-27, portions of Sundown Lane, and a small portion of Coulter Street at the intersection with Sundown. On May 27th, you set this meeting as the public hearing that's required per state law for the annexation. You set this meeting as that opportunity, and at this stage, you all consider the annexation and whether to consider adopting it or not. If you were to adopt this today, it would go for a second reading on June 24th, and at that point, if it were to be approved, then the service plan that was previously negotiated would come into effect and would be binding at that stage. So that's a little details on the process there. Staff notes that if approved, there would be 3 properties that would become entirely surrounded by the city limits. They're highlighted in yellow, but would remain within Randall County's jurisdiction essentially. And the state law 43.057 of the local government code does state that the local governing body must find that it is in the public interest to do so. We did approach these 3 property owners to see if they were interested in coming into the city as part of this annexation. Neither of those 3, when they were approached as part of this process, wanted to be included. They wanted to remain outside the city limits, so they were not included. State law, outside of a very few exceptions, essentially now requires that annexations are property owner initiated. So with them not wanting to participate, we left them out of the boundary at this stage. So just wanted to note that. The property, if annexed, is proposed to be developed with the Kids Inc. Rock Rose Sports Park, and additionally would also include future retail pad sites and development sites. And on your screen now is a graphic that was provided by the developer that wanted to share this today. The area in red is the tract that is under consideration for annexation. And that boundary you see there in yellow is the Tiers 3 boundary, the South Gateway Tiers boundary, and I'll get to that here in a second, some details about that. Regarding the service plan, I just wanted to highlight a few things that were within that. This property would be considered served, or this tract would be considered served by existing water and sewer mains that border the property. So there are already existing services that are adjacent to this tract under consideration today. And the developer will provide or will cause to be provided for the extension of utilities, including water, sewer, stormwater, and streets within the area to be annexed. And upon completion of a warranty period and review by the city, those ultimately would become future city infrastructure that we would maintain long term. Regarding Coulter Street, adjacent to the majority of this annexation boundary, is already in the city limits, and there is already a project under design for Coulter Street that the city is working on currently. The developer, within 120 days of the annexation, will provide the additional right-of-way needed to allow for that to be upgraded to a full arterial in the future once that project moves forward in the future. Same thing for Sundown. Sundown, ultimately, as the developer develops tracks along Sundown, they'd be required to upgrade it as development occurs, and they will also be providing that additional right-of-way for Sundown Lane on their side of the section line within 120 days of annexation, so that could ultimately be built out to a full arterial someday. For emergency services, the police department stated that they'd be able to provide services to this area upon annexation with current budget appropriations. The fire department stated that the majority of this tract is within the 1.5 mile ISO boundary for station number 3, and a majority of it is within the 4-minute runtime of Station 3. There is 25 acres approximately at the far southeast corner of the boundary today that would not be covered. And the fire department stated that if annexations and development continues to the south and east of the one under consideration today, ultimately we would need to consider a fire station at a future date down the road to serve that 25 acres and anything else that would continue south and east if development occurs in this area. Typically, upon annexation, we would begin to collect property taxes within the area. In this instance, as I previously mentioned, this is in the Tiers 3 boundary. So we would, upon annexation, if approved, collect the baseline values that were set as of January 1st of 2023, I believe it was, when the tiers was established. However, as property values increase, those values would essentially stay within the tiers that help fund that future infrastructure within the tiers. And upon conclusion of the tiers in 2042, ultimately we would begin collecting those full property taxes at that time, provided that the tiers is not extended in length. Regarding the sales taxes for this area, this is within the Randall County Assistance District 1, which was passed by Randall County voters, which means the city will not collect the full typical allocation of sales taxes for the area. Typically, there's 2% that's left for the city to split between the city and the AEDC. However, Randall County has already claimed 0.5% of that, or 0.5% of that 2%. And even if we annex it, we don't get that back. So there is only 1.5% instead of the typical 2% the split. So we are going to collect some sales tax, but it's not the full 2% that normally would be generated because of that Randall County Assistance District 1. We did send and post public notice as required by state law for this annexation, and we have not received any comments as of this meeting today. And if approved, we would begin to provide services to the area per the executed service plan upon the second reading of the annexation if approved. And with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend to forward this case to City Council for consideration with a 6-0 vote with 1 abstention. And with that, I could take any questions you all may have, and we also have representation for the applicants here as well that could take questions.
Questions, counsel, for Mr. Kendrick? None? Brady, thank you.
No problem.
At this time, we're going to open a public hearing. Do I have anyone here today that would like to speak for or against this item? Yes, sir. Mr. Ford, if you come forward first.
Let's see if I can figure out how to raise this thing. Promote good posture, right?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You good.
Mayor, Council, my name is Mike Ford, Amarillo, Texas.
There's a couple of significant issues here that I'd like to bring to your attention today. One is the timing of this annexation. As Brady mentioned, since the tiers was formed before this annexation is taking place, then all of the accrual of property taxes, increases in property taxes go into the tiers fund and don't accrue to the benefit of the city, even though the services of the city are being applied here for over a decade. I would ask why the timing and the sequence was taking place. If we knew that this was going to happen, why wouldn't we, as part of the tiers formation process, go ahead and annex these properties? Maybe the landowner can answer that. The second thing I'd like to state is that the tiers ordinance itself is based on false premises. There are mandatory clauses that the city has to declare in state law in order to create and form a tiers. Those conditions have to exist in order for areas of public lands to be qualified as a tier zone. And the statements basically say that you have blighted areas. These areas that we are talking about are unused agricultural parcels, or no longer used, or dormant agricultural parcels that match the conditions of nearly every area of unused or undeveloped land that surrounds Amarillo. So if that was applied uniformly, we could create a tiers in all undeveloped areas for Amarillo. Let me just read you this one, section 1.6 from Ordinance, and it was actually passed on my birthday, 11/8/22, not the year, but the date. Ordinance 8033. Among other things, this is section 1.6. Areas within the zone include land that substantially impairs and arrests the sound growth of the city, retards the provision of housing accommodations, and constitutes an economic liability, slum, and a detriment to public health and safety because of, and again, these are unused agricultural parcels. And this council had nothing to do with this ordinance, by the way. So I'm speaking to hopefully a group that's, maybe you're hearing this for the first time. It's a detriment to public health and safety because of the predominance of inadequate sidewalk and street layouts. Again, this is agricultural land. The faulty layout in relation to size, adequacy, and accessibility and usefulness, unsanitary and unsafe conditions, the deterioration of the site and other improvements, conditions that endanger life and property by fire or other cause. And I'd just encourage you to look at the land we're talking about. It is open agricultural land that's no longer in use. The zone is also predominantly open or undeveloped, as I just said, and because of obsolete platting, there is no platting, it's open. Deterioration of structures, there are no structures deteriorating in this area. Or site improvements or other factors substantially impair or arrest the sound growth of the city. All false statements.
And Mr. Ford, your 3 minutes are up. If you could wrap up
I didn't
your
realize
thoughts.
that there was a time up here. Excuse me.
I was keeping it on my phone.
Okay. You need to announce that as a part of the public hearing that there is a time limit. Therefore, the area per state law, you have to announce that. Therefore, the area within the zone meets the criteria for designation of a reinvestment zone and satisfies the requirement of Section 311. These are materially false statements that this tiers was enacted upon. And again, the timing of this is such that the benefit accrues this landowner when it could have accrued to the benefit of the citizens. The annexation could have accrued to the benefit of the citizens. Any increase in the tax base in this area goes into the tax increment fund.
Correct.
As Mr. Brady just said.
So I
oppose annexation. Thank you.
You're in opposition to this on the public hearing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will try to get that clock back up if we have it. Yes, Mr. Fisher.
My name is Mike Fisher, and I oppose this. Number one, it affects my property, because if you annex this, then it'll bring my property within 1.5 miles of the city limits out on I-27. That's number one. Number two, I remember when they passed this tiers deal for this property, and it was in 2022. And that just so happened probably the second or third year that I continuously went to Pratt to challenge my taxes. And I always say, hey, give me the Atterbury discount. And the Atterbury discount, if you look at the history of their property, we're talking about almost a section of land. I think it's 640 acres. It was valued at $617,000, $1,000 an acre for South Amarillo. Wow. And I said, hey, I want that deal. So in 2023, right at the end of 22, this city said, yeah, we'll make that tiers in 23. But before that happened, we made it part of tiers in 22. And then they raised the value after it came into tiers. There had to be some collusion there because now any increase in value stays in that area. So it went from $617,000 to $3 million in value. But this goes back to the city staff telling you things. This gentleman that came up here and presented this said that all the taxes that are collected, and he said that it would become in the city and the taxes, and well, it's not, because you know what it's taxed at? It's taxed at $23,000. It's taxed at a trailer house right now because it has an exemption on it. And it brings that $3 million property, they're paying $23,000 in value taxes. So it's only paying probably $1,000 in taxes. So now our city's going to be on the hook. We're already on the hook for $6 million to build the roads for Kids Inc. out of money that shouldn't be for infrastructure from the Economic Development Corporation. So who's going to put it on the pipes? That's going to be us. We're going to do that with $1,000 that's going to the city budget, from not even $1,000 that's going to the city budget. We're going to have to build all that infrastructure and be responsible for it. There's going to be new cops. He already said a new fire station. Does that $1,000 cover a new fire station in taxes? And I say no, and it's time to audit these records. These guys I filed official complaints yesterday with my property taxes. 50 properties, Western and the Loop. It's valued. It's valued at $1,000 an acre for 30 acres. We're not getting our tax money from the Atterburys. And
Okay.
I
Thank you,
ask
Mr. Fisher.
that you guys audit the current records so we're getting our property taxes, so we're not having to close schools.
Let me redirect that to Prad. That would be the audit that would need to be done. We don't handle any kind of
You can audit.
assessed value.
You can because you have standing, because we have to meet a budget. So
Okay.
you can look at them and say,
So,
look,
I
we
hear
want our
what you're saying.
taxes.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying on the ag exemption. And so, not prepared to discuss the ag exemption rate and Prad's opinion of that here today, but I do appreciate the public comment on the tiers and the infrastructure zone. So, if you would, let me direct. I'm gonna bring legal counsel in with a few other questions here in a minute. Do I have anyone else here that would like to? Thank you, sir. That would like to speak for or against this item? Okay. So, Mr. McWilliams, is this my question? Today would be the first day I've heard of a tiers, a tax increment reinvestment zone being required to only apply to an area of blight or to an aged area, to where like when we put this in place, never knew that this couldn't be something that the reinvestment zone could draw its boundary, and that it didn't have that criteria. Is that an interpretation that you share, that it has to be an area of blight that he read, or where are you at on this?
There is a number of qualifications in the statute that would allow for this to occur.
So under like the concern that this doesn't meet one qualification, can you tell me, does this tiers meet the qualification, and how was it approved back in 22? Who oversaw this at the state?
The council approves it. And it is, I mean, it's a good tiers. I mean, it's been there for a while now, and the council made those findings. So.
Yeah, so currently we have a tiers zone that council approved back in 22, hasn't been contested, and we now have a landowner trying to annex into that tier zone. It is true that all those monies that are taxable monies are still being paid in the full value of the taxation, but they stay within that required zone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything legally that you could add to, did this meet other criteria when it was approved back in 22?
I would have to go back and look at it. I don't have it in front of me, so.
Okay. Okay. Come back up to the microphone, sir.
So the code, criteria for reinvestment zone, which is why they had the statements in the ordinance. To be designated as a reinvestment zone, an area must substantially arrest or impair the sound growth, that's one, of the municipality or county designating the zone to retard provision of housing accommodations or constitute an economic or social liability and a menace to the public safety, health, morals, or welfare in its present condition and use because of the presence of A, substantial number of substandard slum, deteriorated or deteriorating structures, B, the predominance of defective or inadequate sidewalk or layout. All these things, I'm not going to go through it. If you remember what I read to you, that's the provision of 311.05. And it must contain all of those things, not some of them, but all of them.
What I would ask then, Mr. Ford, is, you're identifying a few things here. So the goal would still be to have the property owner annex in the city limits, correct? Or would your goal?
That's up to the council. My point is the fact that this annexation is not going to accrue to the benefit of the taxpayer in any way, shape, or form for over
Well,
a
this
decade.
annexation accrues to the benefit of that zone.
For the people who own it, for the property owners, yes.
For anybody that invests in that zone.
Well, true, and it goes into the TIF. It goes in the tax increment fund.
Well, so if you have a business entity that wants to come into Amarillo and they can, utilize some of this infrastructure monies, it attracts that into that zone. Let's say it's a chain grocery store that Amarillo would love to have, right? And so they're attracted to this, and so it benefits that. You could see the benefit from that inside of that zone. Now, I granted it doesn't go outside of the zone, right? The appreciated value stays within that zone. But in order to attract new businesses to come into that area.
Yeah, so the way that's supposed to work is that as the tax assessment increases, those increases go into the TIF, and that can be drawn upon
Correct.
by developers. In this case, as Mr. Fisher pointed out, that on the Kids Inc. thing, we're putting it's not $6, Mike, it's $7.5 million in streets, roads, and water and public monies into that when that should be drawn from the tax increment fund. That's the developer's draw. And so we're going out on a limb for $7.5 million. My point is illegally, but that the voters should have been able to vote on that. But in any event, we go back to the ordinance that was filed. None of those conditions in the state law that I will be happy to hand to Mr. McWilliams and show him that it says an area must, in order to be declared, it must contain these features. None of those things exist. Otherwise, every area around the Amarillo would be qualified as a tiers.
Okay. You made your point. Thank you, sir. Questions, council, or comments on this one? Well, just as a remark, I did not identify that this tier zone was not set up in any way that wasn't 100% legally incorrect, and that it qualified, met all the criteria. We've got a developer that's willing to develop, and the tier zone does hold tax increment monies in those areas. We've got a business model that works for. The unique thing is we're not questioning tiers number 2. I wouldn't say that that's an area of blight. That's I-40, and it's growing like crazy, and Buc-ee's has been killing it out there, and the Big Texan does great. And so, this is a first time for me to hear that, you got to have a slum, or you got to have an area of town that needs special attention, like for us to have a tier zone. So, Not anything that I expected to encounter here today, just having a candid discussion with the public. Yes, sir.
There are definitions behind slum and those things that we didn't come prepared to talk about today, but there's people have an idea what slum is. There's a definition behind all that. So,
Okay. Do I have anyone else here who would like to speak for or against this item before I close this public hearing? Any remarks from council before we close the public hearing? Okay. At this time, we will close the public hearing on item 10D and would request a motion.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8200 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on item 10D. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye. No.
We've got 4 ayes and one opposition on item 10D. It passes. Item 10E, we will move into Mr. Path, your new work charge, sir.
all right. City Council, thank you for this time I can present this to you, and I appreciate your feedback you've given me through this process. Organizing the leadership team to maximize efficiency and effectiveness is one of my most important responsibilities as city manager. Given the number of variables involved, this can be both a strategic and complex task. The following is a summary of the primary reasons for the changes being made to the organizational chart. So I'm going to summarize about 4 key areas, and then I'll present the new organizational chart that I'd like for your permission to approve tonight. So first off, pending turnover. This updated organizational chart builds on the direction set back in November 2024 when I brought to you the first phase of this process. We're preparing for Floyd Hartman's upcoming retirement. With the major wastewater treatment plant project now well underway, it is essential to formally establish the team that will lead this effort for the coming years. At the same time, we aim to make the most of Mr. Hartman's invaluable experience and institutional knowledge during the remainder of his tenure. The second area, Chief Financial Officer. The City of Amarillo has experienced a tremendous amount of growth over the past decade. Historically, the CFO position has encompassed a broad array of responsibilities across the organization. As we look to the future, we recognize the increasing complexity and strategic demands of our organization's financial landscape. In response, I'm refining the scope of this position to focus exclusively on the role of Chief Financial Officer. This focus alignment is intended to build upon the strong foundation of financial stewardship already in place and further strengthen our capacity for strategic financial leadership moving forward. The third area is our deputy and assistant city managers. To enhance efficiency and communication and coordination, I'm organizing the departments into 3 spheres of oversight. The deputy city manager, Mr. Freeman, will oversee our public safety departments. An assistant city manager, Rich Guyon, will oversee our community service departments. And another assistant city manager, Donnie Hooper, to oversee public infrastructure departments. While most departments align naturally into these 3 spheres, a few have been placed based off of other considerations. This structure aims to streamline oversight, promote collaboration, and improve organizational effectiveness. And lastly, the managing directors. To accomplish these goals, I am reinstating the role of managing director. This role allows individuals to continue their departmental leadership role while also supporting coordination and strategic oversight across a cluster of related departments. To structure this effectively, I've carefully examined logical groupings within each assistant city manager's sphere of responsibility. Now, although this process presented some difficult choices, 2 individuals have been selected to serve as managing directors, Jerry Danforth in public infrastructure and Jason Riddlesberger in community services. They will support and report directly to the assistant city managers, enhancing coordination and strategic oversight across departmental lines. So the new organizational chart. A few things here. Traditionally, we've only ever shown the departments. I'm now showing the divisions within the departments. So if you see here, the squares that are kind of circular in shape are departments, and then the actual straight edge squares are divisions within those departments. As an example, you look at the far left, Public Works. That is the overall department, but then it has divisions of drainage, streets, and so forth. So starting from the top and working our way down, as you'll see there, I will be taking on the oversight of human resources and internal audit. Move to the right, you look at Mr. Freeman, Deputy City Manager position. He has the public safety sphere. I'm adding the city marshal to his sphere of oversight. To the left of that, Laura Storr, I'm refining her and focusing her role on Chief Financial Officer. So she'll have finance, which includes purchasing, utility billing, and vital statistics. Rich Guyon, to the left of that, he is adding library as well as public health, WIC, and environmental health. And in order to manage the span of control, I am looking to appoint Jason Riddlesberger as a managing director, overseeing community development, public health, WIC, and environmental health. Those four appear to be the most logical choice within that sphere of oversight for him to link together. Moving to the left of that, Floyd Hardman will move to a special advisor role. During his remaining tenure with us, he'll be advising us on legacy projects, water right projects, water tower projects, and of course, a wastewater treatment plant project. And then lastly, on the far left, Donnie Hooper, Assistant City Manager, he's adding Parks and Recreation, he's adding utilities. And then in order to help with those large loads, I am looking to appoint Jerry Danvers as a Managing Director to oversee CP&DE, Building Safety, and Facilities. And so these roles here will help facilitate the span of control given these large lifts in these departments. So with this, this is my proposal for the council. This has been several months worth of consideration, working closely with Mr. Freeman, working with all my CMO staff, looking at different options, looking at different scenarios, and this is what I feel to be the most efficient operation for our city moving forward. So I'll happy to take any questions you may have.
Questions, council?
Tell me about kind of your reasoning behind moving HR and internal audit from lower to reporting directly to you.
Yes, and so with this, I'll start with internal audit. They're currently under the finance department, and so this will allow them to be directly answered to me, as well as having internal auditing across the entire city. They work well together with finance, but it just makes sense to have them answered to me instead of to finance. So talking to Ms. Owens and Ms. Storrs, they agree this is the wise move to make in order to look at the perception and as well as to make it more streamlined answering to me. Human resources, I'm used to having HR answering directly to me, but also too a lot of our policies, procedures, a lot of the grievances, they go right to me anyways. And so this is one that I would move under me, but also too, HR and internal audit, given the overall goals here of public safety, community services, and public infrastructure, as well as looking at wastewater treatment plant, as well as looking at community services, as well as trying to focus on the CFO role, they didn't fit anywhere else. So I didn't want to put them under Andrew or Rich or Donnie, given the loads they have right now. So these are loads that I'd be taking on directly myself. Also, again, it just makes sense the city manager directly oversees these areas. So long answer there, but hope that makes sense.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So, just a quick remark on the overall structure. I think, Mr. Path, one of the things that I've seen you do the best since you've been here is in evaluating the personnel and trying to structure this. And so I think that the way in which you're trying to create those efficiencies and put people in those places we see the benefit in. And this is something that I know myself and a few other councilmen definitely have tasked you with, and we appreciate you taking it on and putting this in place. And then I think you have good buy-in from your staff that they're in the places that they feel like they should serve as well. And so we appreciate that, and then would just encourage you to continue your evaluations and to continue to work further down those charts. So, yeah, thank you for bringing it. Anything further from council? Would ask for a motion on item 10E.
I move to adopt resolution number 06-10-25-2.
Second.
Motion and a second on 10E. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Would ask for a motion and an adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
You're adjourned. Thank you guys for being here. Now, how do I have a tiers that's been set up? appropriate. Nobody's